We will begin our album by starting with the cover, and then we'll move to the pages after that. So for the chipboard, I have everything written down if you want to take a snapshot or freeze this. The chipboard pieces, you'll need 3 of them that are 6 by 8 and 2 of them that are 2 by 8. So the book is a 6 by 8 inch book. The cardstock that we're going to use to wrap it, I used the Artisan cardstock. I originally was going to use the linen color with this collection, but I didn't have any. I had a little bit of white, so I went with white. Obviously whatever color you want is fine, but I used 2 pieces that were 10 by 12 and one that was 4 by 10, so that we're going to connect those 3 pieces to make it long enough. So after you have your pieces cut, you do want to go ahead and put some sort of adhesive on the back. I cut some of the 8.5 by 11 sheets of score tape that Tammy has, which saves a lot of time, and then I just do a little patchwork on the places that it did not cover. So when you combine your Artisan card or your cardstock, whatever you're using, you're going to connect the 10-inch sides. So this paper, this first one is 12 inches long. Then we have a 4-inch piece. Then we have another 12-inch by 10-inch piece. So we need the 10 inches going up and down. Because our book is 8 inches, we add in 1 inch to each side. So place your 12 by 10 down, so it's 12 wide and 10 high. Glue it or score tape it with the 4-inch piece, so that's 4 inches wide by 10 high. And then combine your third piece that is 12 by 10, so it's 12 long and 10 high. So that 4-inch piece is in the middle. You don't want seams where you have the edge of a piece of chipboard. So to do this, this is the layout. We're going to have a 6 by 8, a 2 by 8, a 6 by 8, a 2 by 8, and a 6 by 8. Okay, so with that, we want to lay it down so that we deal with this 4-inch piece, so that we don't have any chipboard in the wrong spot. So I am actually going to work with my second 6 by 8 first. So you want a 1-inch border, and so I just lay my ruler down at 1 inch so that I get it straight. And I'm going to place this piece so that it's centered on that 4-inch strip in the middle. Okay, I'm going to use this little pokey tool to take off my backing of my score tape. Okay, and let's go ahead. I'm going to push down on my ruler so it doesn't move, and I'm going to center it on that 4-inch strip that we combined, and I'm going to lay it down flat and just kind of burnish it to make sure it's adhered real well. Now you do need spaces between your pieces of chipboard, so the way I do that is using the 1/4 inch score tape, and I'm going to place 1/4 inch on each side of that piece, the piece I just laid down. So I'm going to turn my paper a little bit just to make it easier for me to see that I'm butting it up right against that chipboard. Okay, one on each side, and over here. Okay, I do want to just make sure that's down. Okay, so now we're going to place our 2 by 8 pieces on either side of this middle 6 by 8. So once again, I'm going to put my ruler down at the 1 inch to keep it straight. I'm going to do the left hand side first. This piece has, look at how much I had to patchwork that. So I got a lot of pieces to take off the score tape. So hopefully I can do that somewhat quickly. And I don't like to waste any score tape, so I use every last piece. All right, almost there. One more. Okay. So I'm going to press down on my ruler so it doesn't move. I'm going to place my chipboard up against that score tape. Push down. Let's go ahead and do the other side also. Laying the 2x8 down next to the score tape, or the score tape that we laid down. Can't get that backing off. Come on. There we go. All right. I had to do some patchwork on this one too, so. And you can use glue if you want, but I'm using white and I don't want anything to show, even though you're going to cover it with paper. I just want to play it safe. So the backing is off. Press down on my ruler, butt it up against that score tape. So once again, we're going to place score board so that we can lay the last two pieces. Just right up against the chipboard as a spacer and as a way to grab onto that paper when you're burnishing the paper in. And on this side. Okay, let's make sure it's down. So I'm going to work on the left hand side first, not that it matters. Lay my ruler down 1 inch, take the backing off of the chipboard piece, and then we're going to lay it down. And so the goal is to have about 1 inch border, and I might have a little bit more on this end or on the other end, but that's okay. I don't like to work with less. I think 1 inch is the best. You can make it work with less, but okay, so let me scoot this down 1 inch from the bottom, line it up right against that score tape, press down. So it looks like we have about, oh, what is that? Got my ruler the wrong way. It's about 1.5 inches, and I'm not going to trim that at all. It'll be fine. And our last piece then goes on the right hand side. And take the backing off this piece. A little bit more here. Okay, then this big long sheet comes off. I like to put a full coverage of adhesive on the back of my chipboard just because the cover gets the most use and abuse, so I'd rather it have too much than not enough. So then let's just go ahead and place that up against, whoa, that was not good. I'm glad I didn't push down yet. I keep moving my ruler. There we go. Okay. Now this edge I will cut a little bit just because it's a little bit too much. I have about 2.5 to 3 inches and I don't like that much. So I'm just going to trim some off here using my knife, and I have a metal ruler. So I'll just use this as my guide. Okay. There we go. You know what? Just because I like balance, while I've got my ruler, I might as well trim off this. You don't, it's not worth it. Look, I only have, that's just a little bit more than 1 inch, so I'm not going to do it. Okay. So people wrap their chipboard a little bit differently. You do it the way that you prefer. I'm going to place score tape along the perimeter of my chipboard and the perimeter of my white paper. And I also miter my corners in a way that might be different than you. It's whatever works best for you. So let me go ahead and adhere the score tape around the perimeter of the chipboard. And this goes fast just because they're long pieces. And I just do one continuous piece. I don't like cut them where the chipboard starts and stops. I just go right across there. Okay, sides. And one more side. This is a long cover, so I got to keep moving it. Okay, and just make sure that's adhered real well. Now we are going to, like I said, put score tape around the perimeter of the paper. I'm not going to go all the way to the end because I end up cutting that off. So I just start about an inch or inch and a half in and put my score tape along the bottom first here. Okay, I'm going to turn this upside down so I can get to it easier. And the two sides, the short sides. Okay, that's that for the score tape. Now I am going to use some glitter glue. I do put that along the edge of the chipboard when I wrap it, just so that it has a stronger catch on the edge, and it, you can burnish it and make it real flat, and it looks really nice. I'm going to go ahead and take out the score tape in between my chipboard so I don't forget that. Tuck that in there. Take it out. Sometimes when it gets pretty close, I have a hard time getting the backing out or off. So I just go slow. Okay. Two more here. You can fast forward this part if you know what you're doing, and move on to the other part. Come on, I can't get that up. There we go. Let's start up there. And the last one. Maybe. Come on. I hate it when it does this. I can't. There, come on. Just when I think I have it, it falls down. Okay. Gotcha. Are you kidding me? There we go. Oh. This does not want to come up. Okay. Sheesh. So next is mitering the corners. So there's different ways to miter corners. I use this tool. I just lay it on the corner and it gives me just the right amount of space between the paper and the chipboard. So you don't want to cut right up to the chipboard if you're doing it the way I cut it, because you need a little bit to cover it. If you do it, if you watch Tammy Merrill, she does a square down here, and then you can go right up to the chipboard. I don't do it that way. So I'm going to go ahead and just use my angling tool here, or mitering tool, and I'm going to use my blade, and I'm just going to trim off, oopsie, okay, like so. And notice that I do not go right to the corner. I have a little that I leave so that the corner piece of the chipboard will be covered. Do that to all four corners. Ooh, look at that, how that does that in the camera. That freaked my eyes out. Okay, let me get rid of that. That's hard on the eyes. Okay. I am going to go around and just make sure that I have burnished my cover, the score tape down enough. Alright, so I start on the long sides. I wrap my paper starting in the center. I will bring it over and push down and then kind of work my way to each side by pushing up and out. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and take off the backing of the score tape on the chipboard pieces. I'll just do the bottom and the two sides for right now. And I might not be in frame all the way for this cover because it's so long. Okay, now before I take off this, I'm going to go ahead and take my art glitter glue and run a bead of glue up against the chipboard. Just a thin bead is fine. Okay, give that a second just to kind of soak in. So while that's doing that, I'll take off the backing of this score tape piece. Okay, so I don't like ripples, so I'm going to do this kind of slow. I'm going to go ahead and stand this up and bend it over. Give it a second to connect with that glue. And now I'm going to go ahead and go up and out. Up and out. And then we burnish and there's no ripples. So then you do want to go ahead and burnish the edges so that that paper sticks real well to the glue and you have a nice crisp look. Okay. Go ahead and do the other long side. So I'll turn this over. I'm going to remove the backing. I'm going to place my glue. Like so. I'm going to remove the backing that's on the paper. Let's go ahead and stand it up so that the paper can bend in the right spot to go over the chipboard and so that it's connecting with that glue we just put down. And then let's finish by starting in the center and going up and out. Up and out. And with white paper, get that up there, okay. Burnish it real well. Oops. And I'm going to stand it on its side and make sure that I burnish the edge. It's worth it to take a little extra time with the cover. That's what people see first, so you want it to look nice and be sturdy. Alright, so I'm going to turn my book this way. And we do the same thing. We've already got the backing off here. Now you're going to notice that you have a little bit of paper here that we need to tuck in so that it goes around the corner of that chipboard. So I just use my fingernail and push in that little piece of paper. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and place glue up against the chipboard. Now I do put a little extra glue on the short ends And I just put some on the right hand side and the left hand side on these angled pieces. Okay, I'm going to stand up my book, give it a natural fold here so that it goes on the chipboard in the right way. And then I'm going to, oopsie, go up and out and burnish. And you should not have any chipboard showing on your corners. That is a big faux pas. No chipboard showing. Now when you use black paper, it's easy. You can just get a Sharpie and go over it if you see some, but I like to have it covered with paper. All right, one more side. Tuck in those little pieces on the edge. Place some glue. I'm going to put some on the side that's angled that we mitered. I'm going to stand it up so it gets a natural fold where it belongs. And I'm going to bring that paper over and push up and out. Check your corners. You don't want anything showing, any chipboard, and burnish the edge. So our book will be like so. We'll open it like this. So nice, crisp, clean corners. Everything looks really good so far. Now we're going to move on to a hinge and some base pages, and go ahead and get your scoreboard ready and your paper cutter, and I'll give you some measurements. The next thing we're going to do is cover our spines on the inside and do our hinge. So the pieces that I use to cover the inside spine are 4 by 7 and 7/8. And you'll need 2 of those because we have 2 spines. And then the hinge is going to be 7.5 by 7 3/4, and you'll just need 1 of those. Okay, so you'll notice that I placed score tape on the edge of the chipboard, a couple pieces on the inside of the spine, and again on the edges of the chipboard because you want it to lay down nice and flat with no buckling. And also I put it on the perimeter here. You can go in and fill with glue if you want. I think that I have enough being so I put some on the inside. And so you do that on both ends. Okay, cover with your score tape, making sure you get the edges of the chipboard, and do the perimeter of your paper. And then we're going to go ahead and just tape those down, center them like so. Okay. After you've done that, we're going to work on the hinge. So the hinge was 7.5 by 7 3/4. You want the 7.5 inch side across the top. Okay. So what we're going to do is our scoring so that we can make, I'm going to do the type of hinge that wraps underneath. So we have a narrow hinge. It's not going to have the wings that go off to the side of the book. So you're going to start at 1.5 and score. And then go to 1 3/4. 1.5, then 1 3/4. Now we're going to go in 1/2 inch increments until we get to 5 3/4. Okay. So we're going to go to 2 1/4. 2 3/4, 3 1/4, 3 3/4, 4 1/4, 4 3/4, 5 1/4, 5 3/4, and now just go to 6. Okay. So again, you went 1.5, then 1 3/4, and then you went in 1/2 inch increments until you got to 5 3/4, and then you went to 6. Okay, now we're going to burnish those and make the hinge. So I'm going to burnish my score marks. And the first 2 1/2-inch pieces come together to make a mountain, and that is going to be your first hinge. Your third 1/2-inch is going to be the gusset, and that's the way you keep going. So 2 1/2 inches together to make a hinge, the third one a gusset. Then we're going to start again by doing the 2 1/2 inches to form like a mountain, and then we're going to fold forward and backward on those two just so that, okay, so we have 2 hinges now, 1 gusset, and now we're going to skip the next rectangle a 1/2 inch and go to the last 2 1/2 inches. We're going to burnish those two, or that burnish line, that one, so that we have the 2 1/2 inches together. Fold forward and backward to form your last hinge. Okay, so you have this so far. Now you'll notice that we did a 1/4 of an inch. After the 5 3/4 we did 6. Okay, and that is so that you have a 1/4 inch edge when we lay it down in our book. So these 1 1/2 inch pieces will go towards the back. So now I'm going to start gluing the hinges, the 2 mountains together. I am just going to use art glitter glue. I say that, but it's clogged. Hold on. Oh, darn it. I did finally buy some stainless steel pins though, because I lost the pin that came with it. And if you don't get stainless steel, it gets rusty, and I don't like that. Okay, there we go. Okay, so I'm going to pinch those together now that the glue is in there. I want to make sure I give it time to dry and stick together. Okay, let's do the second one then. Pinch it together. And burnish it. Both directions, forward and backward. Now we have 2 of our hinges glued together, and now our third one. And go ahead and burnish. Okay, so now we're going to take the 1 1/2 inch flaps and move them to the back and glue those down. So you'll notice there's a 1/4 inch edge to your hinge. Now let me see if we're going to need to trim those just a hair. They are a little bit long and they won't wrap flat, so I'm just going to take a little bit off. It doesn't have to be perfect. Let's see if that works. It does. So I'm going to place glue on that flap and wrap it to the back. sure that it's lining up at the top and at the bottom. And make sure you push down and adhere it real well. Okay, and then let's see if we need to trim the other side. Yep, we do. Just trim a little bit off so it wraps around without any buckling. That'll do the trick. And add glue. And if you prefer the wings so that they go out over the chipboard, you can do it that way too. It's just personal preference. Okay. And there is our hinge for our 3 pages. And there's the back, and that will be glued down to the, we'll end up putting adhesive on the back. And on the hinge that's on the left, we will be centering that, like so. All right, let's move on to the pages. On the inside left cover of our book, notice I haven't put my hinge system on yet. We're going to be working on this inside left. Here are the measurements for the paper that you're going to need, and then I will tell you the score marks as I do them also. So you're going to need 2 that are 4 1/4 by 6 1/4, 2 that are 5 7/8 by 4 1/2, 2 by 2 5/8 by 3 5/8, and then 2 that measure 1 1/2 by 3. So you can freeze this here so you can see the measurements. So let's start with the 2 pieces that measure 4 1/2 by 5 7/8. Okay, we're going to place the 4 1/2 inch side on our scoreboard, and I need you to make 2 score marks. The first one is at 1/2 and the second one is at 3/4. Let's do that on the second one also. So again, this is the 4 1/2 by 5 7/8 piece. On the 4 1/2 inch side, score at 1/2 and 3/4. Go ahead and burnish those score marks so that you have that 1/4 inch gusset. Now on these two, these are the 4 1/4 by 6 1/4. So on this one, I cut one of them just a hair shorter than 6 1/4. The reason being is because they're going to be overlapping a little bit, like so, on the side of the book, like this. And so if you don't trim one of them will stick out longer than the other. So I have one at 6 1/4 by 4 1/4, and then the other one is 4 1/4 by like 6 1/8. Okay, so you're going to place the longer side across the top of your scoreboard and score it a half, and then you're going to score the second one with the longer side across the top. So this is the one that measured 4 1/4 by 6 1/8. This is the one I trimmed just a hair, and I did 1/2. Okay, so this is going to be the one that gets tucked underneath the other one. Okay, that's this scoring for those. There's 2 more scoring pieces we need. The 1 1/2 by 3s, you're going to place the 1 1/2 in your scoreboard and score it a half, and you'll do that with both of them. 1 1/2 across the top, score it 1/2. Okay, So let's go ahead and work with those smaller pieces so that we can get those out of the way and not lose them. So you're going to need your 2 that measured 1.5 by 3 and the 2 that measured 2 5/8 by 3 5/8. And this is actually going to become the closure for our flaps on the left hand side. So what we're going to do is take one of our 2 5/8 by 3 5/8, and I'm having mine go with the 3 5/8 for how wide it is, and then the height is the 2 5/8. And you're going to take the 1.5 by 3 that you have scored at 1/2, and I want you to place glue on that 1/2 inch fold. Now this score mark is not going to go to the outside of this paper, it's going to go to the inside. So I'm going to place this in the center, or eyeball it close to the center, and I have about an equal border on all 3 sides, and I'm going to press down. So you'll notice it opens up and the score mark is down here towards the center, not at the top. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and burnish that to make sure that it's on real well. Now the other one we're going to butt up against the first one. So we're going to take that 1/2 inch and put glue on it. We're going to place it up against the other piece and line it up. And press down. Now this is going to become a sliding mechanism so that it keeps the flaps down. Now we have one more thing to do, then we're done with this one for right now until we put our designer paper on, and that's to take the other piece that measured 2 5/8 by 3 5/8, and we're going to glue it on top like so. So we're going to actually put glue on this center part, these 2 pieces that we just glued down. This is what gets glue on both pieces. Okay. And I'm going to put this in my scoreboard up against the edge here so I can make sure I line it up well. And I'm just going to place this on top and press down. Now we want to make sure it didn't glue all the way, but no. Okay, good. I don't have any over. So as you can see, you have a slider on the top and the bottom where our flaps can slide in. One at the top flap and the bottom flap will just slide this in like so, so that it keeps the doors closed. Okay, so I'm going to move this to the side. We're done with this piece. Now let's get the cover of our book. And we are going to place the top and bottom flaps first. So those are the piece that had the 2 score marks of 1/2 and 3/4. So I'm going to go ahead and place one at the bottom, making sure that you don't go over the edge here and that you don't go over the fold here. So place glue on the 1/2 inch part only. And go ahead and line that up. And that looks good. I'm just going to go ahead and open it and burnish it some more. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and turn my book upside down just because it's easier for me to adhere the other one. Now when I place this one, I want to make sure that it lines up with this piece. So I'm going to glue it down and eyeball it to make sure that these line up. Okay, so go ahead and place your glue on that 1/2 inch fold. Go ahead and place it at the top. And I'm going to eyeball it to make sure I have it lined up well, and it looks good. I'm going to press down and burnish. Okay, so now I'm going to place my book this direction so that the flaps are looking left and right, and we're going to place our two flaps on the inside. It's actually the inside left of our book. Now they don't go side by side, there's not enough room, they're going to be overlapped. So we want to place the one that's the hair longer, that's going to be our top piece. So if you notice, if I do it the other way, one piece is too short. So I have to place the shorter one inside of the larger one, which means you place the larger first. I hope that makes sense. So I want to kind of see where I want, or how long I want these flaps to be, because you can overlap as much as you want. And I want them to pretty much spread out across the width of the page here. So alright, so I'm going to go ahead and just give myself about a 1/4 inch from the top. So I'll place my longer piece first by putting my glue on the 1/2 inch. I'm going to put it up against the edge down about 1/4 of an inch. Like so. Okay. And remember, I'm working on my book sideways just because it's easier for me to see it. So now this was the one that was a little bit shorter, and I'm going to leave this flap open now, and I'm going to place this one down, and it is going to be, it's going to overlap a little bit so that when it closes here, they line up on this edge. So again, I want about 1/4 from the bottom. So I'm going to place glue. And I'm going to open up this flap. And I want to have it go down about like so. I'm going to close this real quick to make sure they line up. And it looks like they do. Gotta turn it the other way just to double check. Okay. And burnish real well. Alright, so this left hand side, I wanted to leave room for a larger photo in the center, so we're not putting any pockets or anything here. So you have enough room for 2 pictures on this, 2 pictures on this, 2 pictures here, 2 pictures here, or just 1 on each, because you might want to leave this just the decorative paper. But you'll notice it's flapping open. So that's where this piece comes into play. So what you do is you slide the top and the bottom flaps into this piece that we made. Just slide it across, and now it will stay closed. Okay, pretty slick, huh? I wish I could take credit for coming up with that. Alright, so that's that inside left cover. Let's go ahead and we're just going to put 2 pockets on this one, so let me get the measurements for that. The scoring for the first piece, which measured 4.5 by 6 7/8, we're going to score on 3 sides because it makes the base pocket. So with the 6 7/8 inches across the top, you want a 1/2 inch on the left and a 1/2 inch score on the right. So you can do a 1/2 inch, turn it, and a 1/2 inch. Then you're going to place the 4.5 inch side. Mine's a hair short, so don't ignore that. Yours should be a 4.5. 4.5 inch side and do it scored at 1/2. Let's move that to the side. This is our 2.5 by 6 7/8. On the 6 7/8 side, please score at 1/2. Turn it around, score at 1/2. Now, this is to kind of help save paper and to get rid of bulk. So what I did next was I measured down 1.5, nope, 1 3/4 inches, and I put a score mark just to the score mark. So I measured down, let me just double check that I measured down 1 3/4. I think that's what I did. Yep. So I measured down 1 3/4 and I made a little score mark to the score, not all the way across. And I did that on both sides. So I measured down 1 3/4, put a little score mark to the other score mark. Okay. Let's start with our larger piece and make our pocket. So this is where we cut out the bottom squares where there's the overlap. So instead of cutting out the perfect square, you see that square there, I'm going to cut at a diagonal rather than straight on those lines. On both of them. Okay. Some people do miter up here. This time I'm not. Just because I'm going to have another pocket inside of there, so it shouldn't be a problem. So that's that, and then you can go ahead and burnish these score marks on all 3 sides. Okay, and the next one, the cutting is a little bit different. So let me get a pen. So we're going to cut off this right here where we made that score mark. We're going to cut over to the score, and then we're going to cut at a diagonal. So we're going to cut over to the score. Over to the score, we have that 3/4 inch line or that mark, and then we're going to cut at an angle like so. Okay. So we're going to do that on both sides. So it looks like that. Do it on the other side also. Like so. Then go ahead and burnish those 2 1/2 inch scores on the side. Let's put our pockets in our book. Again, this is for the middle center. We're going to start with the larger pocket. We're going to center it in that middle page to make sure it does not go over on the folds where the book will close. We want to line it up at the bottom. And I'm just going to do a dry fit real quick just to make sure I'm happy with this. Yep, that's the length I want. Okay, so I'm going to place glue on those 3 1/2 inch sides. Like so. And again, center it. And burnish. Got stuff on my hands. And with white paper, you gotta be careful. Okay, make sure that's dry before we put on the next piece, just to be safe. Give it a second. So what you are going to do here is just tuck this bottom section into the pocket we just placed, and our stopping point is where the 2 sides meet over here. Okay, so that just saves some paper and some bulk. So you just put glue on the 1/2 inch sides. That's the only place you put glue. if you want, you could put just a hair down here, but I never do because we're going to cover it with designer paper anyway. We're going to tuck this down under, line up the two sides so that they line up like so. Oops, see, I just moved it. There we go. Now if you want, you could put a top flap, and you could put the flap just to about here and then have a cut apart that would keep the flap closed. I may end up doing that actually. Let's go ahead and do that. So we're going to need a 5 7/8 inch piece. Let me write this down so that people don't get mad at me. Top flap. Let's make it 5 7/8 inches across. And how far down do I want that? Put the ruler in the right place. Let's see. Probably at 4 1/2 because we have to score it at 1/2. Okay, by 4 1/2. All right, so if you want to do the top flap, go ahead and cut a piece that's 4 1/2 by 5 7/8. And I got to do that because I don't have one ready. I don't even know if I have a 4 1/2 inch. I like to use my scraps, and I don't think this is 4 1/2. Nope, that's 4. That'll be a little bit too small. All right, I'll get a new piece. All right, 4 1/2 by 5 7/8. Let me do that real quick off camera here. If I knew how to edit, I would take this out, but I don't know how. Okay, 4 1/2. Move some stuff around. Okay. 5 7/8 by 4 1/2. Sorry, it's taking me longer than I thought. 5 7/8. I had to move some stuff. Okay, so then I am going to place the 4 1/2 inch side across the top, and I'm going to score it 1/2. Now if you want, you could corner around the bottom if you like that look better. Let's go ahead and burnish. This will just make more room for pictures, so. And then it kind of mimics this one actually, the looks anyway. And we're going to place that at the top. You'll notice they won't meet exactly perfect, which is what we want so that we have enough space to put in a cut apart to hold this closed. Okay, so I'm going to turn this upside down for me. I'm going to place my glue. And I'm going to put it up at the top and center it. Make sure it lines up with my pockets. And I'm happy with that. All right. Where's my, there we go. So right now it's going to flap open, but I will put in a piece of paper to help us remember that we will need a cut apart here or a matted piece of paper to keep that closed. Okay, so we'll still have our 3 pages on this hinge, and now we need to work on the right hand inside cover. All right, inside right cover. Here are the measurements of the papers you're going to need. You're going to need a base for your waterfall, and that is 4 1/2 by 8 7/8, just one of those. You'll want 5 pieces that are 4 1/2 by 6, and then 1 piece that's 4 1/2 by 8 3/8. So go ahead and freeze that if you need it. Okay, let's do our scoring. Take your longest piece, which was the 4.5 by 8 7/8. Place the long end on your scoreboard, and you're going to score at 1/2 inch on each end. So you can do a half, turn it, and a half. Go ahead and burnish those, and that's going to become the base of your waterfall. Take all of the papers that are 4.5 by 6, place your 6 inches across the top and score at 1/2. Go ahead and score those. Those become the flaps of your waterfall, so do that to all 5 pieces. And then the last one that measured 4.5 by 8 3/8, whoopsie, just score at 1/2 inch on one end. Okay. So we're going to put together our waterfall before we adhere it to the book. And I'm going to use my scoreboard as a way to help me line everything up. So I have the 2 1/2 inch pieces tucked underneath. And I'm going to start by gluing the first page of the waterfall to the very top. And then I'll go from there. So go ahead and put your glue on your 1/2 inch section. Maybe. Okay. There we go. So I'm just going to bump that up there. And I'm going to go ahead and bump that up on the side and at the top. And go ahead and make sure that's down real well. Now you can see that 1/2 inch, maybe, let's see, where that 1/2 inch was that we just laid down, that's where we're going to butt up the next one. Okay, so we'll put it right underneath that 1/2. So I'm going to leave that one open, and I'll lay the next one down. And I'm going to push this up against the side and right up against that 1/2 inch, making sure it's lined up. Fold this down, make sure they're still lined up. Looks like it. Does that look right? Yep. Okay, the next one, do that. We're just going to keep doing that for all 5. Line it up nice. Oops, gotta open my flap. Burnish, make sure it's glued on real well. Okay, lift that flap open, do the next one. Up against that 1/2 inch piece that we just laid down. Okay. And the last one. And I'm going to move it so I can see here. All right. Now you do want to burnish these down real well so that it lays flatter. So this burnishing tool to me works a little bit better for burnishing than the one I was using. I think it just gets them real flat. A little glue coming out. Real flat. All right, so there's our waterfall, but we do want to take this last piece that we scored at just 1/2 on one end, and we're going to glue that down with all of our flaps up. We're going to glue this one down on the base at the very bottom. Okay, so all my flaps are open. I'm just going to glue that 1/2 inch strip along the bottom of the waterfall base. Okay, and burnish that. Now this we are going to end up needing a magnet, and I will show you where. So then these pages will come down, and then this actually will fold up. Okay, so we're going to want a magnet. Let me burnish this a little bit better. Okay, so you're going to want to put a magnet on the top piece, the top flap, and the back of this long flap. So magnet here and here, so that will stay shut. Now when we glue this in our book, we're going to have to wait until we have our designer paper down first. No, wait, that's not true. I lied. Nope, we're going to put this down first, and then we'll slide the designer paper underneath. So we're going to have a place for a mat underneath this waterfall. Okay, so we're going to place glue. I'm going to do the bottom first, and then I'll go back and do the top just in case I need some wiggle room or some wiggle time. Okay, I want to center this. You can use a ruler if you want. I'm just going to eyeball. I'm going to turn the book around. So you should have the same amount of space at the bottom as you do the top. Turn this upside down. Oops, sorry. Oh, so you're probably dizzy. Sorry. And then let's put glue on the back of this 1/2 inch. And lay that down. And press. Oh, sorry, I'm out of frame here. I wonder if that's because I bumped this. All right. So then again, we'll put a piece of paper underneath, and then this will flip up. Or excuse me, this will flip down. We're going to have that magnet to help it stay shut, and then you have the waterfall that flips up. Okay, so that's that, and now we just have our 3 pages, and on this page I'm just going to use the decorative paper. There's enough thickness on this inside left that we don't want to put anything on this one because it's already a little thick there. Okay. All right, time for the 3 base pages that will go on our hinge. All right, time for the base pages. So we have quite a bit of cutting to do this round. So if you would please, just a second, I gotta make sure I got the right microphone on. Yeah, I do. Freeze the video and go ahead and write these down. The base pages are 7 7/8 by 12. And then we're going to work on page 1, which the front and the back. And so those measurements are 6 by 4, well, 4 by 6, whatever, 2 of them at 4 by 6, 2 of them at 4 by 4 3/8, 1 at 4 by 8 3/8. The back is going to be the slider, and you're going to need 1 at 6 by 8 3/4, 1 at 6 by 4 5/8, and 2 that are 4 by 7. Okay? When you have the base page that measured 7 7/8 inch side across the top of your scoreboard, and just score it in half at 6, so that we will close it onto the hinge, and we will we'll leave it open at the top so you can place a mat down on from the top. So do that to all 3 pieces. Just score it in half, so at the 6-inch mark. Okay, so let's work on the front. Let me get organized here. Okay, let's do our scoring for these. So go ahead and get your pieces that measure 4 by 6 and score at 1/2 inch, and that's with the 6 inches across the top, and do that to both. 6 inches across the top, score at 1/2. Go ahead and burnish those. Next, I want you to take the piece that measures 4 by 8 3/8, place the 8 3/8 across the top, score it in half. Not in half, I'm sorry, score at 1/2 inch. Go ahead and burnish that. You're going to need 2 pieces that were 4 by 4 3/8. I'm going to have you place the 4 3/8 across the top and score at 1/2. Do that to both pieces. So the 4 3/8 goes across the top and score at 1/2. Now, for this, I did angle my corners by, I kept this folded down, and I measured down 2 3/4, and I put a little tick mark. On the other side, I measured 2 3/4 down, put a tick mark. And then at the bottom, I went 1 inch over on each side, and then I cut them at an angle. And that's how we're going to do that angled pocket part. Okay, so let's go ahead and start adhering the things that we just scored. So with your base paper with the opening on the left, let's start with the 2 flaps. Okay, these were the ones that were 4 by 6. Okay, so we are just going to center these on our page and glue one at the top and one at the bottom. So that's an easy start. So I'm going to start at the bottom, and I'm just going to eyeball it for the center. If you want to measure, you can. Okay, that looks about even to me, and if it's not, at least I can live with it. Okay, I'm going to turn it upside down, and I'm going to place the other one at the other end, and I just want to make sure that the 2 sides line up, then I know I have them equal. Okay, place that 1/2 inch all the way to the top or bottom of the paper, whichever way you're looking at it. And they line up fine, so I'm going to go ahead and press down. Okay, again, make sure the opening is on the left. I'm just going to move that off to the side just for a second. So here's our 8 3/8 piece that we did at 1/2. I'm going to go ahead and glue one to the top, one of the angled pieces we cut at the top, and one at the bottom, and you'll see that they almost meet, but they don't. And then we're going to end up putting a brad and a here to do a what am I looking for, like a twine closure. We'll wrap it. Okay, so let's go ahead and just glue these two pieces on. They should line up edge to edge because they're the same width of 4 inches. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and turn this around. Now you can't put the closure on until after you decorate your page. Let me clarify that here in just a second. Let me focus on lining this up first. And looks good. So when we put the closure mechanism on, the front has to be, put your pattern paper on first. Then you can put your brad in. After the brad is in, then you paper the back. Okay, just a helpful little reminder there. So then this is just going to be placed on top of the pieces we just glued down, and we can just glue this 1/2 inch piece on top of this one right here. Okay, so I am just going to turn it sideways so I can make sure I have it lined up, and I want to make sure that I don't see anything sticking out, and I got it. Make sure that's burnished real well. Okay, and the weight of this will keep this page down, and then these will be secured closed. So you'll be able to open, lift up, and down. Okay. All right, so we're done with side 1. Flip it over to side 2. Now we're going to put a slider mechanism on, so you would want to put your pattern paper down first. And I wrote myself a little note so I don't forget. I wrote paper before slider. So we're going to make the mechanism separate. Okay. All right, so the back, we're going to take the 6 by 8 3/4. Place your 8 3/4 across the top and score it 1/2. Turn your paper around so that your 1/2 inch score is now on the right, and I want you to score it 4 1/8. Okay, so we scored it 1/2, turned it around, 4 1/8. The next piece, or the two that measure 4 by 7, we don't score. The piece that was 4 5/8 by 6, put the 4 5/8 across the top, score at 6. Excuse me, score at 1/2. Okay, so 4 3/8 across the top, score at 1/2. All right, we need to do some marking on our paper that we just scored. So this is still the 4 5/8 by 6. So using your ruler, you're going to place a line near the top and near the bottom. Okay, so what I did is, starting at the score, I measured over 1/2 inch and put a dot. From this edge, I measured over 1/2 inch, put a dot. And then from the bottom, I measured up 1/2 inch and put a dot. And I drew a line across so that there's a 1/2 inch border on the left, right, and the bottom. So the 1/2 inch, you start at the score. You do the same thing for the top. 1/2 inch down, 1/2 inch from each side, draw a line. We are going to cut that. So what you're going to need to do is get your blade and place, I'm going to put this up against the edge here, and I'm just going to place my ruler. This is a metal ruler, and I'm just going to slit from the start point to the end point. I just ripped my paper. I must need a new blade. Wow, that was a really bad cut. I think I need to trim my blade. You won't see this, but it's, ooh, that is really not good. Wonder if I was just holding it wrong. All right, so we cut that so that it's open, and we're going to do that to the other end also. I don't think I'm going to use my straight edge. I'm just going to follow my line. That actually turned out better. Okay, so now we have both of these. Next, I want you to take a piece of plastic from a plastic bag, and I cut mine a little over 10 inches. It doesn't have to be perfect, nobody's going to see this. And this is how we're going to make the slider mechanism. So I'm going to have you stick the paper through the top and through the bottom. You probably have seen these before. And I'm going to use score tape to adhere the two together. So I'll just put score tape across here. Take off the backing. I'm sorry, I need to make sure I'm in frame here. I hope I haven't been out of frame. Okay. And we're going to place this piece on top. Not too tight. And I'm going to trim this up. And I have just a little bit thicker here that I just want to trim that up because there's tape on it. I should have made that more even. Okay. I have to remind myself how to make these because I don't make them very often. So now just make sure that it will slide back and forth. If not, you need to work with it and loosen it up a little bit. Mine is getting stuck, so I need to make sure I keep it in the middle there. I'm going to trim off just a hair more. Make sure you cut yours straighter than I did. Okay. I am going to go ahead now, and the score mark that we have over here, I'm going to go ahead and burnish that. Oh my gosh, I need to move my camera. Not that much. So I usually work closer to myself than. Okay. We need to attach our 4x7 pieces. And I'm going to show you how to do that, and then we'll put the mechanism together. Okay. All right. Hang tight. Let me just double check some things to make sure I don't do it wrong. Okay, refresh my memory. Ready to go. So I took the longer piece and I did go ahead and burnish them. So I burnished the 1/2 and the 4 1/8. With my 1/2 inch on the left, I'm going to attach this piece on the right hand side. So I'm just going to put glue on this 1/2 inch border here. And I'm going to place it on top of the other piece and line it up. Okay. Go ahead and make sure that's on there real well. All right. So with the long piece on the left, you're going to take one of your 4x7s and you're going to place the tape at the top of your plastic. So I'm going to use score tape again, and I'm going to place a piece of score tape at the top. Okay, I'm going to remove the backing. And I'm going to place this, I'm going to center it. I should have about, let's see, I might have to trim this once I'm done. Like so. Okay, now we're going to turn this over. Now we're going to place the score tape at the bottom of the plastic. Take off the backing. And now take your other 4x7 and place that, center it. Like so. Okay. And so you can see that it will go up and down. Okay. All right, let me get this situated here. Oh, yeah. Okay. Okay, so now we're going to wrap this around. So let's bring that over. Bring this around, and we're going to tuck it inside like so. So let me show you again. So our mechanism is on the right hand side. We're going to fold over, fold it again behind, and then that 1/2 inch is back on the left. We're going to glue that on here. Don't glue it on the paper that we just put down. You're going to tuck it in underneath of that. Okay, underneath. Don't attach it to these pieces right here. And I'm going to have to trim mine because it's going to be longer than the page, I have a feeling. Yeah, I'm going to have to trim about 3/4 of an inch on each of these. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and glue this together, and then you can put your pattern paper on it and glue it onto your base. So remember to put the pattern paper on your base first, and then you can glue this on. Just put glue on this main section right here, and then you can pull up and down. So let me adjust my pieces here, and again, glue this 1/2 inch strip to this piece right here, not to the paper that's coming up. Okay? All right, I hope that's clear. All right, page 2, the front and back are exactly the same, so we're going to go ahead and do 2 of 5 1/4 by 8 7/8, and 2 that measure 4 1/4 by 8 7/8. And you will need your envelope punch board for this. Okay. So on both pieces, you're going to make them into pockets. So on the 8 7/8 inch side, you're going to do 1/2 inch, score a 1/2 inch on each side. turn, do a 1/2 inch. So 3 sides are scored at 1/2 inch. Same way with the 4 1/4 by 8 7/8 inch piece. You're going to need a 1/2 inch score on each end on the 8 7/8 side, and then a 1/2 inch on the 4 1/4 inch side. We're going to go ahead and cut out the bottom squares at an angle, so like a mitering of the corner. We're going to do that to both pieces. Oh, I just cut my paper. Scissors are sharp. Okay. Now I did one side already so I could show you what it's going to look like. On page 2 you have the opening on the left, and you have, looks like 2 folder pockets. So you have a tab here and then a tab down here, and you have 2 layered pockets. So I'm going to flip this over, and I'm going to do the other side. So it doesn't matter which side you start with, but to punch this so that it looks like a folder with your envelope punch board, the first thing I want you to do is put that 1/2 inch score mark in the center of the punch board so that we get that look like it's a folder. Okay, so I'm putting the score mark right in the middle. And if you have a different scoreboard, maybe once you see it done, it'll make more sense. Okay, so that was the first punch. Now I'm going to place the score line at 2.5 inches, or close. It doesn't have to be exact. And I'm going to punch again. Okay, so then I'm going to cut off from here to the edge to form our folder. So I'm just going to lay my ruler down. And I'm just going to wipe off that piece. Like so. Okay, now you can go ahead and burnish all the other 1/2 inch marks or scores. And now let's do the smaller one that sits on top. Okay, so there's the first one. The second one, now we want the tab on this side. So what I did was, even though I want it on this side, I'm going to flip my paper upside down so that the mountain of the score is up, facing up. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to place the score mark smack dab in the middle of the punch board. I'm going to move the score line down to 2.5. And then I'm going to take off that excess. So I want this straight. Lay down my ruler and take off the long piece. Like so. Okay, so then you can burnish your score marks, and then we'll adhere it to page 2. Now obviously this is optional. If you don't have an envelope punch board, you can either trace a folder, or you can choose to not have it and just have a regular double layer pocket. Okay, yep. All right, so let's glue that down, and then we'll be done with page 2. That's an easy one. So remember, I've already done the front where the flap is open to the left. So now I'm going to turn it over, and so now the fold is on the left. I'm going to turn it so that the fold is down at the bottom. It's just easier for me to glue it on that way. I'm going to start with my larger one, and I'm going to place it all the way to the bottom, like so. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and put my glue on the half-inch pieces. And one more side here. Okay, I'm going to push in the two sides and then bring up the bottom and lay it on my paper at the very edge. I'll back it off just a hair. There we go. Okay, go ahead and burnish that down. And now we're going to place the other one on top. So again, we're going to place it at the very bottom, like so. And then that's done. Page 2 is done. Push in the two sides, bring up the bottom, line it up. And burnish. All right, so now page 2 is done. And now we just have page 3 to do. Okay, final page, page 3. Here are the measurements for the paper for front and back. Page 3 on the front, you're going to need 2 at 5 7/8 by 12 and one that measures 5 7/8 by 1.5. And then on the back, we're going to use 4 pieces that are 5 7/8 by 4 15/16. I know that's a weird measurement. And then one that is 6 7/8 by 4.5. You will need magnets for the back of page 3. And after putting all this together for cardstock, you will need one full package. So I'm using about 20 for the construction, and then you'll have the rest of them for tags and mats and all that kind of stuff. So you will need one full paper pack of cardstock. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. The first thing you're going to do is take your 5 7/8 by 12 and go ahead and score that in, you know what, it doesn't even have to be 5 7/8. It could be 6 if you want 6 by 12 so you don't have any waste. Score it in half at 6 and do that on both pieces. Okay, so just right in half with the 12-inch side at the top. I'm going to go ahead and burnish those. And we're going to end up overlapping these to form that angled pocket, that overlapping angled pocket. Okay, so what's going to end up happening is we're going to combine, I gotta find the opening. We're going to combine these two pages so that one overlaps the other, but we're only going to glue it on 3 sides so that we can put something inside here. And then these two outer sides, then we want to angle these. So I'm going to put this one in my cutter, and I'm going to place this on the edge and this on the edge. So let me see if I can make room for my cutter so that you can see what I'm talking about. Move out my mess. So I'll just put this here, and hopefully you'll be able to see. So I'm going to put my 6-inch score at the top of my cut and go down to the bottom corner so that I have a triangle that gets cut off. Okay, so just if you want to do a pencil line first, you can. I'm just going to eyeball it. Okay, so you'll have this. Now on the next piece, you want the opposite. You want to have the triangle this way. So once again, put the 6-inch score on the trimmer blade and then the opposite corner. So now I have, this will be the top of my paper, this is the bottom of my paper, but that's just easiest for me to trim it that way. Line it up just so. Looks good. Okay. So what we're going to do now is adhere these two together so that it looks like this. And like I said, we're only going to put glue on 3 sides so we can also use it for a pocket. So I'm going to go ahead and just put glue here on this piece, on the square, to make like a U of glue. So we want to utilize that overlap. Don't go over the score. Okay. And then I'm just going to place this on top and make sure it's lined up. Don't go over the score here. Make sure that it's lined up good. Make sure you can fold it good and burnish that together like that. Got some glue squeezing out there. Okay, so now we want to overlap this so that we have our overlapping pocket. So we're only going to put glue on the places that overlap because we don't want this to be stuck together. So we're going to put glue along the bottom of one of our triangles. And down here also. Okay, and I'm going to put this one on top. Now, you can leave this open and tuck something else in there, or you can glue this part shut so that it is sealed. It's up to you. I'm going to leave it open, so if I want, I can stick something in here along with in here and then in here at the top. Okay. Now we want to adhere this to our page. So again, with the opening on the left, I want to center this, and when I do that, I need something to attach it with. So I took the 1.5 inch paper by 5 7/8 and I just scored it in half at 3/4. I'm going to go ahead and burnish that. And I'm just going to place this on the back so it becomes a hinge. Make sure you don't have any that goes over on the edges. You want to make sure it's the same exact length. So put glue on just one side. Like so. Okay. And let's make sure, I'm going to do it so that it opens to this side. So I want my hinge over here. Line everything up. I'm going to go ahead and burnish that real well. And you shouldn't need a magnet because it is the full width, so it should be able to stay down without having a problem with flopping around. And then we're just going to adhere the other part to the base page, like so. Now if you want, instead of 12 inches long, if you want to cut like a 1/16 or an 1/8 of an inch off so that it goes almost to the edge, that's fine, but I'm going to make sure that when I put these on my hinge that I don't go all the way to the bottom of the hinge, so that it shouldn't be a problem. And I'm just going to eyeball the center. It doesn't have to be perfect. And burnish it. I'm going to open this up, make sure it's down real good. And there is the front of page 3. Okay, so it just opens like so. So again, you'll have, I'm going to put a strip of designer paper on the top and the bottom and just leave the center for a 4x6. Now on the other side, we just have a lot of flaps and a pocket. So the 4 pieces that were 5 7/8 by 4 15/16, put the shorter side across the top of your scoreboard, so the 4 15/16, and score it 1/2, and do that on all 4. So the shorter edge is across the top, score it 1/2. Let's go ahead and burnish all of those while we're at it. And then we're going to make a pocket also. All right. The last piece that was 6 7/8 by 4 1/2, you're going to score it 1/2 on the long side. Turn it around and do 1/2 again on the long side, and then put the shorter side across the top of your scoreboard and do 1/2. So you have a 1/2 inch score on all 3 sides. We're going to go ahead and cut out the corners, angling around the square at the bottom. And you can miter the top if you like. And I'm going to go ahead and burnish those also. All right. So we're going to adhere the flaps first. So remember, my opening is on the right hand side. I'm going to place this one, one at the bottom and one at the top. And then we're going to make sure it lines up with the outside edge over here, because there is about 1/8 of an inch difference. Okay, that looks about right. Go ahead and open that up and just make sure it's down real well. I'm going to turn it upside down, and I'm going to place another flap at the top, which looks like the bottom because I turned mine around. Line it up with the outside edge on the left and the top. Okay. So, I gotta see what I want to do next here. If I have this down, do I want these at the top? One at the bottom, one at the top. Let's go ahead and add another score mark on these, just to make sure we have space because of the pocket. So I'm just going to do, after I did 1/2, I'm going to do 5/8 also. Where's my scoring tool? So So I'm also going to do 5/8. So that's really close, but it's going to be helpful. Okay. I keep bumping the camera, sorry. So now it's kind of hard to burnish it when they're that close, but we will do it. Okay, so we have a 1/8 inch piece right there. You know what? We only need to do that on one. You guys, I'm so sorry. It doesn't hurt if you did it the other one because we'll put paper there. But actually, I'm just going to lay this one on top of the... then I'm going to have to trim it. Okay, I should have thought this out before I had you do this, so I hope I remember to put a note to watch first. I'm going to not, even though I scored it, I'm not going to burnish it. So I'll put a note, I hope I remember, and then what I'm going to do is just trim 1/8 of an inch off. Let me just double check. Yep, I'm just going to trim 1/8 of an inch off of this side, not this side that has the 1/2 inch. Is that 1/8 of an inch? It looks like it. Okay, yep, that's gonna work. I apologize. I should have thought that out ahead of time. Okay, so let's go back. We're gonna place the one that has the 1/8 inch gusset down, and you can center that. You can put it up high, you can put it down low. I'm gonna center it. So just put glue on the 1/2 inch, not the 1/8. I'm going to turn it sideways. I'm going to eyeball it for the center. All the way up against the edge. Okay, now the reason why we want to put that there is so that when we put this pocket down, it'll still fold nicely and go around it without any gaps. That's why we did that. So we can go ahead and put this piece on top of the one we just adhered so that it has it's got a double flap. So I'm going to lay that right up against here. Make sure everything lines up. Okay. So now you have a double page. And let's go ahead and adhere our pocket. Go ahead and place it so that it goes up to the score line without going over. You know how some days you feel like you're on a roll and some days you're like, ugh, everything's going wrong? I start back to work Monday and I don't think my mind is on what it's supposed to be. I can't concentrate like I want to. I'm in mourning. Okay, tuck in the two sides, and I'm just going to place that down here. Make sure you don't go over that score. Alright, so this will go in, this will go on the top and the bottom. No, I don't want it that way. Sorry, the other way around. This goes top and bottom, and this goes over. So this is where you can put a magnet. You can do the magnet a couple different ways. You can put a magnet here, here, and then here, so you just use 3. You can put a magnet here, here, and here. You can, how else do you want to do it? I'm probably going to put, you know, I'll probably end up using 4 magnets. I'll put one on the top and the bottom, and the partner will be on these, and then I'll put one in the center here to go in the center here. So let me put X's so you know what I'm talking about. So both flaps are open. I'll put a magnet here and here, and then when they close, you'll line it up so that you have its partner on those pieces. And then I'm also going to put a magnet here and its partner here to keep this closed. Okay, there you go. That is our final page. So now it's just a matter of putting them in decorating first, and then putting them in the book and adding your mats. So I will come back and show you after they're done decorating, and then show you how to adhere them to the hinges. I have done a lot of work off camera, adding the papers and the embellishments that I wanted to add. If you have not already done so, please glue your hinge on the left-hand spine, and I did put paper in between in the gussets. I've already put in one page, but I'm going to show you how to I put them in, and I'm going to go to the middle one. Now I do make sure that I press my hinge one way and then the other way, just to make sure that it has no problem bending. And so this is the page. I took the tags out so it'd be easier to put in, but with the left hand side opening, I want to place it on the hinge, and I'm going to lay it down because I want my book to lay down. And so I want to make sure that it is going to be in a laying down position. And I'm going to open up this side. I'm pushing down so that it doesn't move. And I'm going to add glue to the outside and on the spine, or the hinge. I'm not going to do the bottom quite yet because it'll be easier if I wait and do that with the next one. So I want plenty of adhesive. Some people like score tape. I used to use score tape. You can with. Okay, I think that's plenty. And now I'm just going to fold this over. Oh, it moved on me. Okay, and I'm just going to spend some time pressing down here. And I want to give it time to dry before I do the other side. So give it a second here. You can use clothespins and then walk away and then come back and do the other side, but a little bit of time here should be fine, and then we'll get to the back. That's a what. So you don't really put your page all the way down to the bottom of the spine. You kind of put it up about about an eighth of an inch. Okay, so now when we do this side, I'm going to put glue on the outside and the bottom this time. So I'm going to open it up, and I'm going to put glue on the edge and on the bottom, and I'll still put some on the hinge, and then I'll get my clothespins. Okay. I'd rather use too much than not enough glue here. Okay, and then I'm just going to fold that over. The bottom needs to be pressed together. And now I'm going to just clip the bottom so that the bottom stays closed. Okay, and then I will do my third hinge. So I will put still pictures at the end. I hope that you find that this tutorial is easy to follow. I always recommend that you watch it all the way through first and take notes, and then go back and do your album. But I would love to see yours if you make one, if you use some of these elements and then put some of your own personal touch in there. That's awesome too. So if you need or want this paper, go to countrycraftcreations.com, and thanks so much for watching my channel, you guys.